The three times when H.H. was happy. H.H. lived 90 years more or less in peace and quiet without any particular upheavals. During all those years, he was happy exactly three times. For two of them, he never knew it. To the door. In time, you come to understand that the only thing you can do is console. Before my grandma died, she was already wasted away. She would grasp my hand and say, "Funny thing is, I still want to live. Tomorrow I'll milk the goat. I could use some fresh milk." The goat had died 20 years earlier, and grandma hadn't gotten out of bed for 6 months. When I was little and afraid to fall asleep in the dark, I stretched my hand out from my bed. She stretched her hand out from hers. The room was that narrow that this bridge drove away my fears. It was like she was seeing me off, holding my hand until we passed the scary thing. Then she'd let me go on alone into sleep. Wonderful. Now, what could I do but return the favor to her? Everyone enters into sleep and death alone, but it is good to have someone see you off to the door. So, bonding with grandma in winning over this fear is something I identify with here, actually relate to. And this is what I did with my grandmother as well, not exactly in this way, in different ways, but yeah, the exact same thing. And yes, we go to sleep and to death alone, but yes, it is wonderful to have someone at the door. I think that I am actually reading stories. These are the ultra short stories. They are not just synopses. The next one is called Mistake. She's 5. She has lined up all of her stuffed animals on the floor and asks them, "How are you today, kids?" Then she goes behind them and answers in their voice, "Better than tomorrow." Has she gotten mixed up? I wonder from the other room. We usually say, "Better than yesterday." Better than tomorrow implies a heightened level of anxiety, if I can put it like that. Could a mistake actually be a sign? Very nice. The next one is called Milk. There is a cowshed in the courtyard of the monastery. In the evening, as the cows come home, a radio plays in the shed. If the weather is bad and they don't go out to pasture, the radio is on all day, mostly local and classical music. People believe this has a positive effect on the cows, which, translated into plain speaking, means the milk yield increases. At the top of every hour, the radio broadcasts the news. The cows fall silent and ruminate alongside their hay on the latest events of the day. I buy milk from there almost every day, fresh, still warm and thick. I haven't been there for a few days. There has been terrible news on the radio. Oh God, and what would that news be? I hope all is well with such cow farms milking their cows away. Right? The next one is called Newsflash. One day, the poet Yu hears a newsflash on the radio about the death of a famous Bulgarian poet. And right then, the signal cuts out and perhaps there is a power outage, but in any case, he can't figure out who exactly has passed away. He only hears that the funeral will be today at 2. It's now 1:45. Well, if it's some poet friend of his and this has been happening a lot recently, of course he'll have to go. But who? Who, for God's sake, has kicked the bucket? In his head, he goes over everyone who has 1 foot in the grave. He too should be on this list. but for some reason he leaves himself out. He thinks about calling a few of his closest writer friends just to check up on them, but then decides that it would be awkward. What would he say when the wife or the suspect himself picks up the phone? So he decides to call into the radio. "Excuse me, I didn't hear the end of your midday news. Who exactly was the poet who passed away?" "Just a moment," the woman at the other end of the line says, and a few seconds later chirps, "The famous Bulgarian poet Yu has died." "But that's me." Yu drops the phone and rushes off like a person who hates to be late. Is this magic realism? Oh wow. Now the next one is called The Angel of Unread Books. They're out there somewhere. I can see them stacked up on top of one another, all the books I will never read. The top of the tower is lost in the clouds, while on its very summit sits the angel of unread books, his legs dangling down. Some of these books have not even been written. This is really amazing. This unread Tower of Babylon grows day after day even more striking. Sometimes I think God can be reached through not knowing. How wonderful. So I'm just back from an event where this writer, Georgi Gospodinov, was having a conversation with Olga Tokarczuk, the Nobel-winning author, the Booker-winning author, and it was wonderful in its own way. And now how lovely to read this book put together by the Palace of Culture, and the event was not too far away from there as well. I have amazing thoughts about these stories. I hope you enjoyed my brief comments as well as the stories. Thank you for listening, friends.